Dear Governor Lamont, there is correlation by how the hierarchy of, for example, former director of the FBI in his defendant capacities has roles leading up to a 2006 Connecticut District Court case, with people also leading up to the World Trade Center attack context, were involved with post-dating of documents from inside the Ninth Circuit Court, and so they presented post-dated documents that had been post-dated from inside the court to appear as if they had been handed in late to the judges, to the panel of judges in the Ninth Circuit Court. There are people with both sides of that, and with the jobs, those are involved with construction and a pro se, parts of cases related to, and unrelated cases apparently, but they have relations with the actors, the members, the people's names, and where and how the courts and the police forms and political families recorded, confessed, and demonstrated they stacked their own names and other people's names so they could complicate what people have to say per their roles with identity thefts and frauds, fabricating audio and video into campuses' databases, and then acting in relationship to live progressions from that, where and how investigators and the standing positions of database relationship stewards private as simultaneously. Same way they have all different syntax and types of memory that are mimicking the same temporary / lasting relationship a CPU has to the power, if the circuit's on, if the computer's on or not. So anything that's not just saved. But also everything has to work. See, but this isn't a contained database relationship /S, where and how we left out the original one, where and how all locations, areas, and state sciences further were abridged, and per that method that was entrenched, more finite than the nature of the unity our founding parents had to force inside this secret, had to entertain speech forced to be theaters of criminal insidiousness, natures of positive and of negative simultaneously to all locations. It is so positive, the subject of how nature itself demonstrates negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, and demonstration of slavery. This breaching method that was here before our founding parents were born knew that nature was going to demonstrate negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, not just because of slavery, that form of it, which is most overt, where they have the evidence right in our face. They put the laws, black, white. We don't even need to read about it. That's what they told us. Now, see, they also told us simultaneously, see, what is simultaneous as the identity of value progression is value, where and how we are a semi-nature relationship to where and how and why we are individually grouped in species, grouped ages, areas, not just sexes and things like that, not just physical, not just color. That was engineered with everything else to keep physical difference, used self-value, to get over on actual difference. That one identity of volume as that identity of value / value progression that is its own system that is positive unto itself, distinctly to, especially, distinctly to Earth, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously to Earth in relationship to the your complete identity is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously onto your hair. You cut your hair, but you don't want to cut your identity. See, this breaching method they cut everyone's identity. Not just because they force people to roles with sick things. Sustained. So then what is sustained? Fact chibi nature. What is sustained? Mental illness, not because of physical problems, not because anything anyone caused. Everyone was a victim. But everyone wasn't allowed to talk about that. So what'd they do? They had to blame other things, others themselves, when they're making fact treatments as identity ground locations. Only human voices. Identities of jobs, titles, locations, areas, names. And each identity has inseparable from itself one identity of value progression, which is invisible, but it is still discernible, not just because of the identity, their inventions work or not in relationship to it, they are positive or not further in relationship to it. We have to understand criminal and seditious natures of positive and of negative take into collusion with all identity ground locations, areas, states of every modern nation. We're in a semi-ancient trap. We have to understand it's all right, people have different physical delusions, criminal foreign influence premises treatments when they want to take their opinions about religion. They have people who, like, in other words, if you want to say, I have religious rights, I don't want to talk to this person. They just fabricate the conversations with you because they have various natures of courts that have been hiding life progressions, personal criminal involvements with doctors, that have involvements with their patients and criminals, with other natures of organized crime with them. Remote uses of intermilitary has police forms that are also doctors of psychology, that are involved with the exploitation of anomaly with the databases, they can't defend themselves, they can't make proper fact treatments and afford to have countered what actually most furthers the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, which is also recorded, but we have to have mandated law followed outside of courts that are also individually grouped and together. Victims, but victim predators with the police forms. It is also, in other words, the police forms in the hierarchy is still attaching, just fabricating audio and video together. So we have to be able to tell on this outside of courts. And courts have to allow writing. And they don't, and all exceptions in exception nature are a demonstration of that. While they haven't been doing that, they've been in the background having intercities police departments invest themselves to roles with fabricating falsified police reports into databases through time, connecting fake things. And as roles with the exploitation of that, again, with overt criminal enterprises. Now, part of the reason I know this is because I minded my business through my entire life. And so there are recorded means to observe conjunctions between how overt criminal enterprises and how interbranch family members had themselves and others seek me out to record, confess, and demonstrate themselves criminally foreign influence, and with connected finite lies, sequence shifts, active, progressive, and identity thefts and frauds of this method that American history is really about. That's an identity theft against everyone. That's identity fraud against everyone. It is not by accident. Increasingly, this is prevented. Anyone is prevented from telling on this. Every single person involved with every location, area, and state is using any difference they all have to get over on difference. This is not about. This is about what is true always as exceptions, as itself, that same identity of truth. See, we have criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments, and of negative treatments we have criminal and seditious nature of identity treatments. So I don't know Eric Oliveri, but he reported, confessed, and demonstrated, lives at the end of the bridge from East Harbor, and then Route 3, all along Route 3 through Wethersfield, and to its extent, are people involved with predicate acts with an Oliveri family on my street with the people on the judge on off the state judicial branch offices. Now these are people also with interbranch uses of Facebook pages and of the Facebook pages stewards for crime methods, where and how they're pretending that people should sue for rights while they're simultaneously fabricating audio and video into databases, so that no one gets a response. All exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of it. So they worse than painted themselves in the corners. And so manifest are switching names in relationship to the executive police forms, in relationship to the judicial police forms and judges and prosecutors and state's attorneys, and roles with Washington, D.C., and Pentagon syntax, with the intra-campuses, not just inter-campuses. Now this is also, again, all along Route 3 that goes right by the state judicial branch offices. Also that little street and park next to it has a whole bunch of Wethersfield police officers and has their family members. A whole bunch of people tied to a Heather Hansen. These are all victims, but how they have people as victim predators. Because they need to pretend people have differences, and so they are leaving out the courts. Involvements with her. And with a whole bunch of foreign nations with those courts. Involved with identity thefts and frauds and methods of it. Sequence shifts. Now there's also a Joshua Julian, who's involved with them with natures of and methods of recorded predicate acts that are involved with co-defendants of former director of the FBI and their confessions in depositions relevant, and in other cases not related. But in other words, for example, one of them, he was asked, you didn't know that was proven. Now these are people also with a Faenza family involved with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso, and as people involved with sexual circles interbranch that are also involved with overt criminal enterprises, that are involved with like people with the name Joey Quest, and people with the name Fred Grisey, and people tied to are also people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with my town's police chief, his daughter, and his extended family member. I barely know them. I don't know them. I don't know if they pretended to have a conversation with me. I showed how there was an exception. There was a web school. And now there are military police that live near there, like a Kolvinskis family, that is also involved with the Joshua Julian and the Joshua Stryker, with others on-off Fox Connecticut News, but also on-off Trinity College with a Joshua Stryker I never had a conversation with. Craig Oliveira I never had a conversation with. They were recorded involved with sought me out to make confessions about them when they were at the same location as me one time. And Eric Oliveira. And they made bombs that day with people involved all along Route 3 now. With things where that was in the past, they were involved with Route 3, with judges and prosecutors criminally involved with their friends and ties to my street. Many of them I never saw on my street. Thou said, though, these are people involved with sequence shifts that attach me to fake locations. And like with the Joshua Julian, they're also involved with what is actually recorded where and how they've been using the coaches and the teachers and the types of experts indifferent to roles with where and how FBI agents are personally, and police chiefs 1 years ago and one now with houses in my area, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, forced to roles with them, switching names, forging names, roles with identity thefts and frauds with the extended family members, like a Phil Cololo. I don't know if that was real or made up by them, because the same people though, same families, people associated with forensics locations, and with that are involved with the Joshua Julian, and with the Facebook used for their predicate acts and wrongdoing, and cover-ups of that, as roles with more predicate acts as wrongdoing or whatever. In other words, identity thefts and frauds roles. I never had anything to do with Joshua Julian. Now, a bunch of boyfriends of girls at the same time have conjunctions with probate court judges' families and New Britain Superior Court's judges' families and other Hartford courts families and family members of people who work with them. Also with other police forms. There are state police forms families and stuff like that. Now they've been using the phenomena, not by accident, of all locations, areas, and states, constantly having needs for and having manifest investigations, investigators, and vetting identities, private and other, regular opinions, citizens, the Wethersfield town offices, the library, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Same thing with the locations next to there, the streets next to there. And that's a quick conjunction to Church Street in Old Wethersfield, which has houses on there involved with medical racketeering, with various. There's also intercampuses roles, and connected, and in fact treatment nature oriented, and they're keeping lie progressions involved with how they were hiding their own from presidents, how they're forcing presidents to collusion with them. Free speech never spoke for one location. Those who pretended to be integrity anyway, they're simultaneously not realizing and or realizing, but it's too late. Too many lie progressions, too many uses of all identity ground locations, people's names, when they uses of positive and negative as criminal and seditious natures, as styles of logic that can't defend themselves and afford the proper answer /s. So these are people that with worse than extortion against me, offensively. These are people with Central Connecticut State University from off that campus, personally as our own representatives. But there are a whole bunch of other nations simultaneously involved with them, with shared policing, shared motivations, nature, needs, interests have nothing to do with any of that. For this method that was sophistication here since before anyone. And all we need is free speech, which is simultaneously with the surface values of the Constitution valued. And James Madison, the identity thefts, frauds against him, understood simultaneously in relationship to the questions involved with American history and the sequence shifts. So those same people self-valuing, they're self-valuing criminal and seditious nature positive, the perfect world forsaken. Simultaneously, that is valuing perfect logic forsaken. Perfect words of uses of words / values. Even make it a debatable one, like ego. Energy. You say energize, God's omega. I'm going to. I can't. That's one of the things I wanted to do. Besides, as part of education, but I had to keep going for linguistics. I wanted to get a master's and/or a doctorate in linguistics, what I would have been done by now. But before the World Trade Center attack, the same people involved intercities with child campuses with CCSU, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also military and medical families. I found out more and more about this out of sequence, also for how the methods of the courts and of the police forms offensively prevent it with wire crimes, mail crimes, identity thefts, and frauds, so they can prevent people from speaking about actual acts. New Britain Superior Court has rape threats made against me. And they have all the other simultaneously all kinds of child abuses, fabricating evidences in cases with medical families that are involved personally, criminally with prosecutors since they were kids, recorded and involved with database predicate acts, many tied to a Mayana family, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with sequence shifts. And with predicate acts associated with people associated with two speech teachers, speech class teachers I had in high school that are also involved with predicate acts on and off the state judicial branch offices, on and off the state prison offices, off of it with the street really next to it, opposite within the street next to it, like with the Fianza family. That's also involved on and off to our highway where it runs into predicate Hangdog Lane. With a Dillon family with judges and prosecutors involved with predicate acts, also with overt criminal enterprises and people on and off WFSB and on and off Fox Connecticut News and on off the locations next to them. Also recorded, confirmed, demonstrated, confessed. They'll pretend other two, which is also evidence. But they have roles also on 2 Route Highway, and with houses on off 2 Route Highway and near it, and where it runs into Hangdog Lane and into the Berlin Turnpike. Perpendicular to that, the Berlin Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. Now at the end of it, before the heart of Hartford, there are 3 locations that are a bunch of ways with a bunch of different people involved with identity thefts and frauds against me and against my family. But it's also with the judges and prosecutors, criminal and state police and their family members involved with predicate acts on and off CCSU, on and off Trinity College, on and off UConn. They're also using the identities of the campuses, not realizing. They're exploiting where and how people are good people, including, like, in other words, both parties are sick. They are hiding self-valued crime methods that were engineered with everyone blaming other things other than themselves for what the breaching method caused. If you don't want to call it predicate acts delivery system method, with associate organization to it, which is recorded through time manifest. Now, people blame it on other things with physical delusions, which would be all right if they weren't simultaneously rules, crimes, predators. If they weren't simultaneously having to hide how many ways all investigators, and vetting identities were valuing bad things happening and having happened, so they could use that to blame other things other than themselves for what they were causing as roles. Because not yet when one individual has been afforded free speech without identity theft, frauds, acts against us, per treatments of positive and of negative simultaneously, criminally foreign influenced, and in collusion with themselves and with their uses of their identities as actually recorded. See criminal insidiousness. So they also have people forced to speak through others, because there are people with the grammar schools and with the other schools in Wethersfield who are further recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with attaching me and other kids and our family members to fake communications with ourselves, exploiting all exceptions, creating exceptions to exploit. See, but you have to have free speech revealed here, because of their nature also with forced on-off campuses connected abuses of kids of mixed natures, including as evidence how the women self-value roles with that which is sustained to the sexually natured crimes of the dozens from New Britain Superior Court, granted speaking through others, having been speaking through others, having been simultaneously valuing, as is actually recorded, criminally foreign influence statutes, readings of them, uses of that, and uses of that further. Because uses of that is to keep it, they're furthering. So they're also making people, they're recorded, confessed, demonstrated also with private people, fabricating conversations with the interbranch, fabricating audio and video, and they're commonly pretending people make conspiracy theories as some of their crime methods. So they can pretend we had conversations, because they've been fabricating evidences all kinds of ways. These are all kinds of evidence racketeering natures with cases and with treatments of positive and negative other people's identity and of the original and progressed relevant identity of negative value nature progression that all we're forced to play roles with. That's evidence. So what's also evidence how they switch names. Now, Wethersfield police, they make confessions and they bring more names into it. So there's a Brendan Leahy put a clipboard next to me. I never had a conversation with him. I wasn't going to have a conversation with him. He recorded and involved. See, you can't record the police. But I figured out how I could get them to record themselves. Because 3 months before, 3 times, they forced me to Hartford Hospital for mental evaluation. 3 times distinctly. First time I had no communications with any of the doctors. I explained. I had one word. Yeah, whatever. He was gonna. A Leahy guy said he wanted to put a nicotine patch associated with what he was gonna write about me. I don't know what he was gonna write. What he did was fake whole conversations with me about legal cases that him and his family member are personally involved with the defendants criminally. And like leading up to in a 2006 case, they were involved with a whole bunch of natures of predicate acts together that are on and off campuses connected. And these are also people with dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court personally, like a Brian Silver, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by people with New Britain Superior Court involved with them with predicate acts, with prosecutors retired and standing, judges retired and standing, and with prison cliques and doctors involved with each age of factory nature. Like we have child prisons, and doctors of various natures, fake sides of correlation nature, like associated with a Ray Reynolds. I don't know him. He's one of the people involved with policing from on and off Middlesex Community College that is also involved with the Morrow family, with former director of the FBI and other agencies with Wethersfield Police Department and people on and off the state judicial branch offices and around that park there that are also involved with confessed, recorded, demonstrated, they'll pretend other. That's also evidence. Their roles with World Trade Center and Washington, D.C. manifest, and all along Church Street, that house on the corner is involved with them. On and off Central Connecticut State Universities, also forging and switching names, also with people with the same names, also with uses of the syntax phenomena with that, where they're pretending people don't speak clearly and stuff like that, as people that know that they've been attaching us to fake words, fake ties to themselves and their family members since we were kids. Now they did this with WFSB too, and fake ties to doctors as kids. Some of these are doctors, and they're the ones with the prosecutors personally involved with them, with all kinds of drug crimes and identity theft crimes, as the people countering such, attaching kids to fake, like a Rick Cianfaglione, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, a Paul Zano, a Zano family involved with them. I barely know them, and others with Central Connecticut State University, and people with Trinity College, and his roles with Fred Grisette, and with the police chief's daughter, an extended family member, also all along Route 3, like with a Mazzucato Bakery, and one in Hartford. Now I don't know them, but that's what the police recorded themselves, confirmed, confessed, recorded, demonstrated. Now they're playing games with words like said and communications, with the courts criminally involved with the locations crimes and criminals. There's also Officer Jerry Miller on Facebook. Now they have 2 different Facebook pages, and they have a Scalera family, and they have a whole bunch of people at Trinity College recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts on Trinity College and on CCSU. As are also people involved with predicate acts with databases when I was a kid. It has something to do with how they had Afghanistan families and stuff like that associated with the Wethersfield Library and the Wethersfield Police involved with identity theft, fraud, sequence shifts, having them involved. They're ducking behind that. Has something to do with the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News, involved with these 2 Mendez police also, with falsified police reports on off the Wethersfield Police Department, attaching me to fake, put me in quotes, they just put fake audio and video, tied me to themselves, because they were involved with attaching me and other kids to fake locations, fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves, and their roles with wire crimes when they were kids, associated with this Eric Mendez, who's also involved with medical corruption since he was a kid. By Wethersfield Police said that he was involved with steroids and pretending that, they used to talk about him getting whacking off and stuff like that. People I never had classes with. These are how I know people's names. These are how people are involved with on and off New Britain Superior Court. The same families on and off the Wethersfield Police Department, fabricating audio and video, and with people on the Child Sex Offender Registry that also have ties to the people who answer phones of Wethersfield Police Department through time. Same house, tied to the same house, /S, associated with police chief years ago. Reportedly, that woman was his girlfriend. And so Wethersfield Police called me on the phone from Wethersfield town offices again. Now there's also an Inspector Mike. There's also a Michael Emmett. There's also a Michael Kerr. There are at least two Jerry Kerrs involved with the Wethersfield town offices and all along Griswold Street. Now see, these are people involved with girls who are now women who have to pretend that they knew me from the past. But those past contacts, I didn't know them. They approached me with people that were already recorded and involved with overt criminal enterprises and judges and prosecutors, including an O'Brien family and a former Mayor Gold that is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with an ILO family involved with identity thefts and frauds and drugs crimes with people on and off with the policing private of schools and agencies and federal criminals on and off Buckley High School in Hartford through time and on and off Wethersfield campuses. Now this is with a DeMorrow family and a Kerr family that are also involved with former Mayor Gold and new mayors with predicate acts on and off Trinity College, on and off the principal child offenders campus, leading up to that and since. They also arrested me with a harassment complaint, and they fabricated audio and video to hide what was actually recorded and to hide what was actually confessed. And that is more people worse and involved with worse than he was put in prison for. I'm not saying he wasn't involved with that too, which is also involved how the judges are involved with the girls that had the shared boyfriends at the same time. Like the Spada family. I don't know Joe Spada and his father, his mother, and stuff like that. They were confessed, reported, demonstrated, involved with, abused by this, whether they liked it or not. But it has something to do with a Dillon family and houses in their area involved with confessions to me as strangers, so they could pretend other where those located. So in other words, that is recorded, and they're simultaneously needed to pretend other. In other words, there were also investigators involved criminally in the past with those people, and with the sequence shifts. So there was an exception. There's a Sal Civiello and a Richard Dabrowski. Richard Dabrowski is involved with wire crimes with judges and prosecutors in the past. Per people tied to him, I don't know him. And the exceptions with him, with one time with a paintball gun, which is also involved, and with broken windows. These are people involved with courts and judges and prosecutors, and FBI and other police forms with the Wethersfield Police involved with those predicate acts with them. Now these are also people with forensics locations and in depositions, the co-defendants of former director of the FBI. 3 of them have roles with predicate acts with the schools I went, with their kids also, that are involved with the predicate acts on off Trinity College, with judges, with their investigations, investigators. Questions that were asked of me were not asked by legitimate reasons by Dr. Shue. And so they have also how they have everyone making confessions at once, intercities and on and off campuses connected. So there are a whole bunch of state police and their family members. And there are Wethersfield police and their family members involved with overt criminal enterprises, involved with predicate acts with those 3 identity of the ground locations. And I kept it simple. I don't know any of those people. So these are people that attach me and everyone around me to fake words. They attach me and my family and the other kids and their family members to fake communications with themselves. And then all exceptions and exception, they exploit. Whether and how this is force sustained. Whether and how they force sustain self-value. The real causes of why they have so many problems, other than their time treatments, keeps them as knaves. End up shooting people. There are, anyone who really understands how the systems are working, it is engineered. It's not the fault of guns. It's not the fault of knives, poisons. These are sick, life aggression, cover up nature's needs, styles, as victims. Effectively maintained, incapable of responding to where and how responses are needed without blaming other things other than themselves. So to do what is right is to demand on paper response. Who denies this? And have them pick one name in sequence, any branch, and we'll take it from there, because it is recorded how interbranch, but it is also recorded how foreign, and that is also relevant to where and how the World Trade Center confessions enrolls with the predicate acts on Church Street in Old Wethersfield and that house in the corner are involved with so many people on Central Connecticut State University that are involved with the recent wire crimes and predicate acts rolls with the names on my street brought up by the Wethersfield police switching names more. Now there's also another guy. There are guys switching names with the name McGee, Officer McGee. And something we also have a Dillon family that is also with real estate companies that are involved also with uses of the Hanson family and with my new and past neighbors, forced to collusion with them, worse than criminally incompetent. They're going to owe them money or whatever. I don't know. Everyone's, they're trying to make problems. They're trying to make fake care self-valued by everyone. Where and how they're preventing anything in writing criminally. So that's one of the crime methods. One of the multiple crime methods associated interbranch prevents writing while they're stacking fabricated audio and video into databases through time. Sequence shifts. That's why and how they have people in my grammar school I had nothing to do with my entire life pretending lies about me and involved with confessions where interbranch may have confessions because they keep rolls with fabricated police reports since I was a kid. Now I'm not charged with anything now. And I have been asking you since before the World Trade Center attack for response for the courts recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed from their locations, having been involved with locations and with investigators and investigations of other things to hide that. Then they had to hide that where and how it was as the same people involved with that had to exploit it in the World Trade Center attack. And I have nothing to do with this Scalora families that are involved with juxtaposed natures of predicate acts, per the Wethersfield police, per them simultaneously pretending other, with the various natures of courts criminally involved with them, and with their roles with connected predicate acts between the child campuses and the adult campuses through time. Also recorded uses of the identities of the identity, like, in other words, everyone's positive and negative treatments, everyone's uses. Oh, UConn, we all want to like UConn. We all want to like our colleges and universities, but they're involved with identity thefts and frauds. But it's also involved with this method that's making people blame other things themselves, including those judges, for example, in relationship to this, where they have those treatments of those celebrities who they may paid all this extra money and faked their way in there while they've been faking their kids since they were kids. These courts are live progressions right to each campus, recorded. There are live progressions right to every standing identity of correlation nature. Same thing with the police forms, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, where we're gonna observe the manifest live progressions. Wethersfield town offices is involved with too much to be involved with elections. If I went to and signed up to vote, I'd be entertaining the juxtaposed natures of child abuses, elderly abuses, way worse, that Wethersfield town offices is involved with, let alone the identity thefts and frauds that you can't defend roles and styles like that, pretending other, and afford American history discerned. So they have men and women from my town associated who went to Trinity College and went to CCSU, who I never had anything to do with. All exceptions, exception nature, are then recorded approaching me with their roles, with what is actually recorded, uses of investigations and of investigators by a whole bunch of nations use their remote too. But I mean, we have overt criminal enterprises, and to have private ones recorded in collusion with the same sequence shifts and identity thefts and frauds rules. And that's also how they have, even though I lived in other locations where my neighbors didn't live before, and I never saw them there. And you know, they have roles with predicate acts narratives with the people associated with those locations. Now, this is not just with the Wethersfield police chief. These are with people further involved with the family members of and the persons of the co-defendants of former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson on racketeering, influence, and corrupt organization act, where the branches of government where we can't sue them personally. See, but they're pretending we can't. And they're hiding all exceptions and exception nature. They're valuing that. So we have to address where they are victim predators, and they want to be referred to as predators because they have everyone making allegations against everyone, for example. So while they're forging names, switching names, pretending that they could use their identity, the ground locations for what they can't, and they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes to do that. See Marbury versus Madison. So what we need is to have, so for example, I'm reporting they're preventing anything I'm writing since I was a kid with the same people involved, attaching me and little kids to fake locations through time. Fake ties to complete strangers like a Joshua Julian. Now these are people involved with the transition from ACA to RICO, Organized Crime Control Act, to the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organization Act, where and how it was self-valued in the past. There was so much, everyone's victim of so many things at once. They had private industries, and they have overt criminal enterprises. They have, in collusion with themselves. And with hundreds of nations shared policing of identity of the ground locations together. Because when they have fact-cheating nature disputes about the finite and about sequence shifts and about what is active, positive or negative. Oh, it's democracy. Oh, we're nation building, that's our agenda. It's all fake. A1 through Z, whatever. So what we have to do is have mandated law followed. See, that needs to pretend. So we have to follow what is also recorded, or confessed and demonstrated how the uses of them switching names is manifest in relationship to how and where the director of the FBI and the other police forms and private ones and their family members and everyone's neighbors are also recorded, where it is recorded how they are hiding life progressions by using investigators to fabricate things in collusion with what is actually going on wrong with the locations. Their motivations for that are uses of identity ground locations where both parties are sick together. Like the clubs downtown Hartford are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. Then I don't know there are people with CCSU, with Trinity College, involved with predicate acts with people from my town, Wethersfield, interbranch, and intermilitary, and inter-service people, and inter-private. And they're involved, again, with the name stacking, and then pretending people, that's used as a method against people, where they're preventing writing, too, simultaneously, while they're pretending other. Dear Judge Napolitano, Fox News is in collusion also with insurance investigators, always remember, and with WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, fabricating audio and video with families involved with the World Trade Center and with the Washington D.C. before the World Trade Center attack. All along Church Street in Old Wethersfield, the house on the corner has a guy named Gilmore, a Dr. Gilmore. I don't know if it's one that was related to a woman that had different names. It was an English teacher of mine. I never had any problem with her. I barely had any communications with her, and that was forced by her. She said it could be a diamond in the rough, or something I wrote. But people on that, and that's also the Heather Hansen, and people at Trinity College involved with a Joshua Stryker, has something to do with when they made bombs and made confessions about using UPS for mailing stuff. But it also has to do with their roles, with that leveraging the forced natures of predicate acts and abuses of kids and uses of my name and others on my street criminally, attaching family members to fake words with family members through time. Sickly. Now, there is a Trantolo who also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with locations, crimes, wire crimes, with the words /values like family, where and how he roles, attaching family members to forced out of sequence conversations, also where they separate subjects, where they're preventing people from telling on things while they're fabricating things and attaching lies to truths and pretending not to realize, and where and how that is being exploited by increasing numbers of names, where and how our identity of value / value progression as humanity is being and having been exploited, where and how it is native, pure, no matter who you are, be sure. So follow law for Wethersfield Police. They also have a whole bunch of police with Rocky Hill and with Newington Police, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts with the families on off the schools, involved with everyone speaking through others. This is where the hierarchy covers its lie progressions by using the people speaking with them, by uses of identity ground locations manifest because of how long that is exploited by so many. Increasingly, right back to all identity ground locations, valuing, everyone blaming other things other than themselves, valuing that simultaneously as styles of positive and negative treatments, of sequence treatments, of identity treatments that cannot be defended and afford to have discerned the short words about American history proper. So increasingly it is about the active words and the progressive words. Science never spoke for what is people stacking in modern cities, not just America. That was in syntax racketeering. So the real cause of to engineer, already effectively engineered, how that causes negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. It engineered rules blaming it on other things other than themselves. That is relevant where and how we are incapable of having election that is not criminally foreign influenced, because all locations, areas, and states are criminally foreign influenced. Wethersfield Town Offices has fire departments in Hartford, Connecticut. An IO family recorded, confessed, and demonstrated a fire department next to Trinity College, and one on Griswold Street in Wethersfield, involved with them criminally. The Old Town Cafe on Main Street, right near where George Washington had to come with the French general to counter-extort that which he left with slavery in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and with medical racketeering. No, that's also still involved with that corner. That's right around the corner from the corner of Church Street and Main Street. That's right on Main Street in Old Wethersfield. Now that corner house is involved also with the Hansen family on that street, and with others on that street, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts. From that street to that corner house, all along Main Street, all along that street, all the way to CCSU, right through cities. People are involved with predicate acts with that come down to the same as their roles with the narrative with the recent predicate acts. and with the Colella family, involved with the confessions of the officer Sullivan, and the crime method where they have a woman that they say is the only one with the name Sullivan. And they had some little kid playing, sounded like he was playing a prank. I called the Wethersfield police. They confirmed. See, someone called from Wethersfield town offices. Now these are people involved with confessions about Trinity College, involved with Afghanistan and Los Solitos, which is also recorded various ways. They're involved with my health class project with Fred Grisey, which is one of the persons that went to a private school who I didn't know made confessions about his roles with lipoaggressions and with predicate acts on and off the schools, the middle school, on and off the high school, with people that were also involved with my grammar school that I never had a class with, but they were in my grade, and they went to a private school, so I never saw them around. But they were involved with the predicate acts with people on each side of the schools that are involved with identity thefts and frauds and methods of it. It means by that missed, but recorded. So, Governor Malloy wouldn't help. I'm not asking to report anything. I'm anything complicated. I'm asking to respond for this names forging and switching, the fabricating audio and video, and I want it in writing. And because their roles also fabricating conversations with me about legal cases, this Leahy family, I want a response for that. And I want a response for their roles with the predicate acts on my street for the people tied to them. Now 3 times, then we're going to go into the Dr. Zeman and the other doctors forging name switching sequences with this Judge Killian, also recorded with physical delusions, also recorded with his family member and with media people involved with their predicate acts and their physical delusions, recorded clear as day, sequence shifts, and their fucking and their drug crimes. So but we have to get the Leahy family and those judges first, because those are also people involved leading up to the World Trade Center attack, and in that context, involved with depositions and with fact-cheating nature, reception, criminally foreign influence, as victims, but as victim predators too, and with former director of the FBI and his co-defendants that were pretending passions and emotions, and then they found out in a deposition, they knew, but in a deposition, they saw they didn't know that something was proven in court, because they've been blaming other things on others for their role involvement while they were involved with overt criminal enterprises. If proven or not, what was proven, they were involved with pension thefts, other federal crimes. And these are people also further being and having been recorded involved with on-off those job sites, connected to on-off campuses connected. Stacking illusions in databases. Roles with that mentioned, identity thefts, frauds of methods and natures missed, but are completely recorded. There are doctors that I never had conversations with that faked conversations with me, and they had ties to other English teachers I had, which are also relevant to where and how they have recorded victim reactions for how they have roles of the neighbors, of the parents and people associated with the principals now, with the schools, that are involved also with simultaneously with those predicate acts on off CCSU and on off Trinity College, that are also revealing intersciences, how they have that involved all along Church Street and Wethersfield, all along Main Street, and right through cities to Central Connecticut State University, on and off Paul Manor Ford Drive, are people that are recorded, confessed, demonstrated through time, having been involved with investigations and investigators that were in the background influencing people for motivations they were pretending to themselves and or to others. But they were using investigators to hide lipoaggressions, to hide criminally foreign influence uses of all locations, including the interbranch locations, including their individuals that are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts when I was in high school. That's also with narratives with the doctors criminally involved that I never had conversations with, that are pretending other, including a teacher I never had a conversation with personally. That's also Washington, D.C., with people that were in that class. And Mike Pandolf and his brothers are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, also involved with judges and prosecutors with wire crimes. Now, these are the people that are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with sheriffs and stuff personally, criminally. Their family members. Everyone's, they're covering up live aggressions. These are also people all along Route 3, which goes right by the state judicial branch offices. No, recorded, confessed, demonstrated involved predicate acts with a confirmed roles predicate acts with the Fianza family and people associated with them, with this Dillon family too, and with the courts involved with them criminally with the uses of the real estate companies, wherein how they had obligations to admit things that they were doing with the kids on off my street with this Leahy family, and with houses in the area that I never, like on the other side of a pond. There are houses near a golf course entrance, like near associated with all the people associated with Joe DeMoro and his cousins with the Wethersfield police and my town's police chief from 1 year ago are involved with predicate acts with my area through time that are relevant. Also with the Mendez police, because I only know them through them, and their roles with wire crimes and wire crime methods, where people called, like he called me up on the phone when I was in middle school. I never had anything to do with him. I never went anywhere with him. They had someone else come to my house. Now that is also recorded. These are the people involved with my health class project. They're also, since I was in high school, stealing my work, lying about my work, sabotaging my work. So I want someone on paper now, because there's a Michael Emmett also involved with attaching little kids and their family members to fake communications, and all exceptions exploited. No, because you're going to discern how they make people need to fight with each other, argue with each other, or to just ignore things that are being furthered, where if you ignore that, you can't make a proper defense of where you work. So they keep natures of people who work, like especially regarding who answers phones. They have them in collusion with a breaching method that is using human fact treatment nature, that is offensively preventing mandated law while pretending to be for it, while valuing more and more exceptions and exception nature for them to be able to get away with it. All liars attaching lies to truths. Truths are only allowed to be used as lies and not entertained, wherein how all the questions will be answered in relationship to what can't do that. Because this subject is inseparable from all of it. What is truth? Always, not denying exceptions. That's what lead correlation nature. That is being led by nature, not by some punk agenda inside of it, which any agenda is until science speaks for the most forsaken location, for every location, let alone the most forsaken location. So pick one name in sequence for anyone who denies this interbranch. Governor, please, and I'll show you. And see, like I would, in other words, they fabricate audio and video, and this is where they have been using the locations criminally. It's all right if they want to deny it, put them on paper now. I'm not going to bring more names into this. Governor Malloy, please do what's right and respond in my YouTube comments. Follow mandated law. Wethersfield police are recorded, confirmed, demonstrated, threatening that they switch names and forge names. They